Want to learn more about your true nature? Check out the many interviews and short videos produced by our friends at ispirit.us. Like their page at facebook.com/ispirit.dotus and browse through their many posts and be inspired by the wonderful and positive messages about life that they share with their community. If you would like to study the works of Spiritism and delve deeper into this philosophy that will be guaranteed to enrich your life by teaching you about the greater life, check out ediseiofamerica.com. At ediseiofamerica.com you can find all of the seminal works of Spiritism written and compiled by Allan Kardec, translated from its original French to English, as well as other Spiritist works that serve to add to the immaterial treasure that is the Spiritist philosophy and doctrine. As one of our subscribers and followers, be sure to use promo code ispirit_love to get 10% off from your next purchase and continue to support this beautiful work of dissemination. ispirit_love to get 10% off from your next purchase. Thank you. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to our video series concerning what is Spiritism. On the last video we had finished on item 11, and we're going to jump a couple of items all the way to 15 to continue our study of this section entitled Concerning Spirits. And the reason why we're jumping the other items 12 through 14 is because they simply go more in depth concerning what we had already covered in the last video, which is the human being and its three parts: the soul, which is the intelligent principle; the perispirit, which is the ethereal envelope; and the physical body, which is the corporeal envelope, or the human body itself. The human being, composed of these three parts: the soul, which is linked to the perispirit which allows the soul to manifest itself via the physical body. So since we talked about this in depth in the last video, we're going to jump straight through to item 15 to continue this study of the book, What is Spiritism? Item 15 reads, spirits clothed with physical bodies comprise humankind, or the visible, corporeal world, which is us, the 7 and some billions of people who live in the world today. When they are rid of these bodies, they make up the spirit or invisible world. So we can surmise from this statement that the true population of the earth, of both incarnate, that is, the beings who are inside an envelope, a physical envelope, and discarnate beings, those who are outside of the physical envelope, must be some orders of magnitude larger than the one that we have currently cataloged as the population of the world. They populate the space in the midst of which we live, without our even suspecting it, because we are in the envelope, in the corporeal envelope, limited by the physical senses. So we can't see the beings that are liberated from the corporeal envelope, which makes perfect sense. If I'm inside of an envelope that limits me, that limits my abilities and my senses, clearly I'm not going to be able to see a being that is outside of this envelope and no longer in the same frequency as I am in terms of the visual spectrum that the eye, the material eye, allows us to process and see through the mechanisms of the physical body. So this is why we can't see them, but they certainly are there. And if we look back in Hebrews 12:1, we see Paul saying something similar when he states that, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, and here we are, a great cloud of witnesses, meaning that there definitely is a large amount of spirits that are discarnate, people who lived on this earth, who have passed away, who are waiting until their next opportunity to reincarnate, be it here, be it somewhere else, in another one of the trillions, quintillions, infinite number of schools that light up the ether. But certainly they are here with us, a large amount of them, and we are among them. We count as them as well, except that we are in a different level, or a different, I don't want to say the word dimension because we're all in the same dimension, but we are in a different manifestation. We're existing in a different type of manifestation. We are in a solidified manifestation, if we want to put it this way. They are in a dispersed manifestation where they are not held together constricted or limited by the envelope that we are. And Paul continues, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And just to quickly divert from what is Spiritism to this, when he says let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, this goes back to the law of affinity. If we have brothers and sisters who are discarnate, who are around us in the world, yet we don't see them, we, through thought, can certainly connect with them through different vibrational frequencies. So if we are sad and depressed, we're going to attract those that are liberated from the physical body that are also sad and depressed. We're going to become in tune with that frequency. So our radio transmitters, in a sense, will be receiving the same waves that we're emitting. So we're going to be surrounded by a negative cloud of witnesses. And when Paul says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, is to say that let's always reflect and pray and think of good things so that we don't attract further negativity around us. So we don't attract things that may cause us harm or may intuit us to do things or inspire us to do things that might not lead to happy or good consequences. So let's remember that, which is a very sagacious and perspicacious warning from Paul the Apostle. And he already knew all of this long time ago. And then let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So let us not hold ourselves back by focusing on these types of negative thoughts, negative energies, negative behaviors that are not in alignment with the divine laws, that are not in alignment with what's expected of us to fulfill and succeed in our missions here while incarnated. So let us make sure that we connect with the good things, connect with the good thoughts, because in the same way that the negative thoughts connect to the negative entities, the positive thoughts and the good actions will connect to the positive entities and the good entities. And by entities, I mean the spirits, the discarnate brothers and sisters, including those who help Earth progress, those who are part of that group of elevated spirits, venerated spirits, who take care of all of humanity, including Christ himself. So continuing on with item 15, they populate the space in the midst of which we live without our even suspecting it, just as we used to live in the midst of the world of the infinitesimal without suspecting it before the microscope was invented. Of course, so perhaps in the future, as I had mentioned in the previous video, we will have also a certain type of scope which will permit us to see this other population of beings, which are nothing more than what we are, except outside of the body, on this planet in which we live. So we will see how much greater the population is and how truly we must watch ourselves and be careful with our actions, because we are being seen and witnessed by many at all times. We have to keep this in mind. So in essence, our homes are made of glass. They are completely glass homes, or transparent in a sense, because it is visible to everyone else. They see our deeds, they see our actions, our conduct, and we cannot hide from them. The masks come off when we are no longer in the envelope. And this is exactly what happens. They're able to see what we're doing, those who are not in the envelope. In the physical envelope, that is. This is why Jesus says, watch and pray, because then the house made of glass will be able to erect a shield around it so that we don't connect with these negative things, with these negative thoughts from these entities who are not yet, have not yet found inner peace and happiness. Spirits are not, therefore, abstract, vague, and indefinite beings, but concrete, circumscribed beings who, if visible, would resemble humans. So if we looked at them, if we could see them with our own eyes, it would be like we are seeing other people, just like we are right now incarnate. But they're in a different manifestation. The energy which composes them is being manifested in a different, let's say, in a different speed. A speed that is too fast for our senses to grasp and process it. Ours is in a slower speed, which allows us to grasp those around us who are being manifested in the same speed. Thus, it follows that if at some given moment the veil hiding them were to be lifted, they would form an entire population around us, as I had mentioned before. Item 17 reads, spirits retain all the perceptions they had while on earth, but to a higher degree, because their faculties are no longer deadened by matter. They experience sensations unknown to us. They see and hear things that our limited senses do not enable us to see or hear. For them there is no darkness, except for those whose punishment requires them to be in darkness temporarily. And by punishment, I mean simply consequences. Punishment is a religious word with heavy connotations, but let's translate that into consequences, because a consequence could be seen as a punishment for something that we did. Because if we erred in the past, we're going to have to face the consequences of our mistakes from the past. So, in essence, if we have made a mistake, we are going to have some limitations because of that mistake. And so, when it says here that the spirits retain all their perceptions, and even to a higher degree because their faculties are no longer deadened by matter, this depends on the progress that the spirit has achieved and obtained, and whether or not there are certain things that holds him back, that holds it back, the spirit back. Things like guilt, remorse, angst, despair, any emotions that translate to things that were done erroneously in the previous incarnation or in the recent incarnation that they just had. So this will cause them to be limited in the things they can see, because all they can see is the thought of this activity manifesting itself over and over again, this activity being that exact thing in which they endeavored that led them to this consequence. So the nefarious and deleterious activity that caused them to be the way they are now. So they experience sensations unknown to us. They see and hear things that our limited senses do not enable us to see or hear. For them there is no darkness except for those whose punishment requires them to be in darkness temporarily. All our thoughts reverberate within them, and they can read them like an open book. What we may be able to hide from a living person cannot be hidden once that person becomes a spirit. Doesn't become a spirit because we're all spirits, we're just simply incarnated, but once that person liberates themselves from the envelope. So whatever we think is manifested into images around us. And certainly those who are able to see, who are not stuck in their own recurring nightmares or recurring activities of things done wrongly in the past, they can see what we are thinking. They can see the emotions that we're emitting. So if we're able to hide things while under the veil of the corporeal envelope, those who are liberated can see these things that we're trying to hide. So this is why we cannot, we have to do what is right and do what is good. And we have to always think good thoughts. So we are not being we are not manifesting things that are bad, that are able to be captured by those who are around us that we don't see. And so depending on that thought that's being emitted by us, it might reverberate in the same frequency as that spirit who has similar thoughts, thus attracting them to us through the law of affinity, and they become linked to us. And perhaps they are able to work that thought and cause us to make that thought become something like a fixed idea within us, where we can no longer think of anything else, focus on anything else, and that becomes the primary thought that we have, and we have to act upon it. And this is how that negative inspiration takes place, where it leads us astray from the path that we ought to take. So we have to be very careful, and we have to, as Jesus said, as I mentioned already, watch and pray. Pray to protect ourselves and watch over our actions, our thoughts, so that we do not open up the doors into our inner homes, so these brothers and sisters cannot penetrate the inner castle and perhaps do whatever it is they do to cause us to continue to err and do things that we're not supposed to be doing.